Excellent. So, welcome everyone. I'm Jorge Parodi. I'm the music director of Opera in Williamsburg. And here we are with our general artistic director, Naama Zahavi-Ely, which is coming back from the airport from Israel safely. So, we're very happy that she is in New York.
Yay!
And we have some members of our cast of our upcoming production of Pagliacci by Loncavallo. Here we have our Neda, Catalina Cuervo, soprano of
Hello!
Colombia. And we have Pavel Suliandziga, our Beppe
Hello,
Yeah.
everyone.
from Russia. And we're going to start rehearsals very soon. We'll start rehearsals on
Tomorrow.
tomorrow, very much tomorrow. We're looking forward to it. So thank you for being with us and for watching this either live or recorded. And today we're going to talk about our upcoming production, which is Pagliacci, and we're going to focus on the play within a play concept, and mostly about commedia dell'arte and what's that mean. First of all, Pagliacci was premiered around 1880s, actually 1886. It's a very successful verismo opera, typical of late 19th century. And it was actually upon Leoncavallo's watching Cavalleria Rusticana, he thought that he was going to make his own verismo opera, a short one-act opera in which the stage imitates real life as much as possible. What's verismo? Verismo is it's a style of late romantic opera in which the composers and the librettists try to imitate real life on stage as much as possible. We are actually pretty used to verismo because pretty much all movies that you see are verismo, right? And most of the movies, the normal movies, I'm not talking about superheroes or anything like that, but most movies that you see produced today in Hollywood are movies that represent real life pretty much as they are. I mean, of course, never real life. Otherwise, it will be like a camera, standing on a corner and filming whatever it happens, right? So there's always an editing, and there's always a book. There's always a point of view from the creator. There's always a story. There's always a manipulation of everything. The lighting, the dialogues, everything is manipulated, right? But in a way, when we watch a normal movie, it looks like we are just looking into the real life of the characters. And in a way, that's what opera was trying to do. If you think about Shakespearean theater, the theater, it was not necessarily lifelike. There's a heavy formal element in it. There's long monologues. There's a formal quality of the interaction of the characters. And certainly in opera, we were coming from a huge tradition of formal discourse. Certainly music created in a very formal way with repetitions and verses and strophes and things that are very typical of musical language. But verismo tries to create a flow that is similar to the flow of life, in which characters don't repeat the text. They don't do go back and sing a refrain, like we don't normally sing refrains in our lives. The flow of the text, it was very close to the flow of the spoken text, and especially the themes were a very real life story. So something inspired by town people, common citizens, and especially small town stories and feelings and emotions, right? And of course, being late romantic, it was a heighten of the uh, dramatic and emotional writing. So also all these stories are heavily dramatic and very, very intense. So that is what Verismo is, and in fact, these two operas, Cavalleria Rusticana and especially Pagliacci, are the best examples of Verismo, and in particularly Pagliacci, because of all the operas, probably together with Tosca by Puccini, are the ones that the flow of the music and the language and the story, it's almost um, uh, real time, let's say. Now, one thing that is very interesting in this piece of Verismo is that the story is a play within a play, and the what we see, the characters of the opera are wandering performers, are traveling group of clowns that goes from one town to the next one, and they perform in the little carretto, little van that they travel with, and that becomes the set, and they do a play of what's called Commedia dell'arte, and I will talk about Commedia dell'arte a little later. But essentially, this most of the characters of this opera are this troupe of performers that actually put a show in the opera. So again, we have two layers of performance. We have the characters that we see that are performing another character that they see, and we also see, right? So this is the typical dramatic effect of play within a play. And this play that they are putting into sorry about the noise. This play that they are putting together is a typical example of commedia dell'arte, and commedia dell'arte is a style of theater that started around 1500s in Europe, even a little earlier, and it was very popular at the time of Renaissance, in which common people will have that kind of performance. As you can imagine, theater was not a common thing in medieval Europe, and in most of the operas were, I mean, no operas, no, there were no operas yet. The theater was usually nobility theater, and there was very few opportunities to actually see plays, but certainly it was oriented to educated people. So the revolution of the Commedia dell'arte is that it was intended to be performed mostly outside in the town square, for the common people. And because of that, the characters are very relatable. They are very down to earth. They're very grounded, and but also they're very stocky. They're very comedic. They are fun stories, and they're always a bit of a caricature. Eventually, Commedia dell'arte evolved, and they created very, very specific characters. And the cool thing with this is that the audience will easily identify the story because they will recognize this character. So imagine that it's like essentially it's the star power that we are used to, right? So we enjoy going to see a performance, especially when we know the performer. And what, because in this in medieval or early Renaissance Europe, there was no communication for the masses. So this idea of creating these stock characters, it will make them recognize them. So it's a wonderful opportunity for them to see a character that they know, they felt that they know how they look, and they know how they behave. So these stock characters were very very user friendly, let's put it that way, and the audience will immediately engage with these plays. Now, the interesting thing of the play within a play is that in this case, in Pagliacci, the opera starts with a prologue, and already the prologue breaks the fourth wall. There's a character called the Prologue, which is sung by one of the Commedia dell'arte, but at this moment, he's not a character in the opera. It's actually just a performer that breaks the fourth wall and usually walks through the curtain and start actually talking to the audience. In the prologue, in this case of the prologue, what used to happen also in Baroque operas and in early Renaissance plays, there's a prologue in which the author explain a bit what the story is going to be, and they have the opportunity to apologize for anything that it could offend anyone. Certainly, for example, in Rome, the prologue was a way to apologize for talking about other things other than religion, and to talk about false gods and false stories, which it was not necessarily well seen at first, but then it was the norm, and to have these characters talk about different gods, for example, Grecian stories talking about Greek gods, which normally would have been offensive. The opportunity of apologize for that and warn the audience was given in the prologue. And you will see, I'm going to play eventually the prologue of Pagliacci, and you will see that the character apologized also for disturbing the audience, and talks about that the author sent him again to talk to the audience, but not like in the old days to warn you about the drama, or that don't worry about what's going to happen, that is just make believe. But on the contrary, he wanted to engage you and let you know that actually this is a little piece of real life, which is, in a way, this prologue is the anthem of verismo, because the character explains that the intention of the author is to recreate real life on stage with real characters of bones and flesh, and that they cry, they suffer, they hate, they love. Again, this idea of trying to create real life on stage, which we know is not possible, right? So because that's what we want. We want to manipulate what is on stage, yet we want to create this feeling of real life. And actually, there's something that's called the suspension of disbelief, in which the audience will stop making thinking what it should be normal, and accept the reality that the stage presents us. And Verismo tries to make that suspension as minimal as possible. And in this case, the prologue starts saying, yes, what you're going to see is not a play, it's actually real life, which is actually, it creates even a new play within a play version, which is really wonderful. So now the audience, the real audience, is part of the story, because the character is actually talking to the audience in the play, that is going to be an opera, they're going to watch an opera that is going to have a commedia dell'arte inside. So it's like this space within a space that is fascinating, and it creates these enormous layers of reality. All right. Okay, so here we're going to I'm going to share now the prologue of Pagliacci. This is with Juan Pons singing the role of the prologue, and in the version of the Metropolitan Opera conducted by James Levine, and in the production of Franco Zeffirelli, that actually this performance was directed by Fabrizio Melano, which we have the honor and the opportunity to direct our Traviata a couple of years ago, and many of you have the opportunity to meet Fabrizio. So he is the stage director of this version that you're going to see from 1994. Hold on, let's see. I'm going to share the screen. I want to make sure that the view is as good as possible, and let me know if the sound is not ideal, but hopefully it will be very good. Here we go.
Si può, signore, signori, scusatemi se da sol mi presento, io sono il prologo, poiché in scena ancor le antiche maschere mette l'autore, in parte i vuol riprendere le vecchie usanze, e a voi di nuovo inviami, ma non per dirvi come pria le lacrime che noi versiam son false, degli spasimi e dei norti mastrir, non allarmatevi. No, l'autore ha cercato invece fingervi uno squarcio di vita, egli ha per massima sol dell'artista un uomo, e che per gli uomini scriverei bene, e dal vero ispiravasi. Un nido di memorie in fondo all'anima cantava un giorno, ed ei con vere lacrime scrisse e i singhiozzi il tempo gli battevano. Dunque vedrete amar siccome sono gli esseri umani, vedrete dell'odio i tristi frutti, nel dolore gli spasimi, urli di rabbia udrete e risacite. concetto vi dissi, ora ascoltate come gli è svolto. Andiam, incominciate.
All right. So that's it with the very exciting prologue. As you can see, it's very typical of Verismo. It's tried to, as hard as possible, to erase the separation between the audience and the stage, and to warn you that what you're going to see is real life, and that the characters, the players that you are going to see, are actually flesh and bones, and they feel the same emotions, which is, again, it's not true, because the characters you're going to see are characters, right? But it's fascinating how he wants to break, again, just to stop or eliminate this idea of a false reality that is on stage, and try to create a true story, right? Which is, in fact, it says Del Vero inspiraba, he inspired himself on the truth, which is essentially what Verismo wanted to do. Now, you saw that they were dressed in a funny way. Of course, the name is called Clowns. The name of the opera is called Pagliacci, which means clowns. And yes, the characters, most of the characters are clowns, except for one. And the townspeople that also, and that in our version in Virginia, the townspeople are going to be the townspeople, right? So you, the audience, are going to be our townspeople. So we are going to keep trying to break even more four walls, right? We're going to have no walls at all, because we're going to be live in the commons there, in right across the street from the library. So one of there are three characters of Commedia dell'arte, and this Commedia dell'arte is this style of theater in which we have these very typical stock characters that makes the story very easy to follow for everyone. So the main, I'm going to talk very briefly about some of the characters, and in fact, this opera has 4 Commedia dell'arte characters, and they are all the Commedia dell'arte characters are very very typical. There are many, but and although they have typical qualities, it's never just one way of doing it. Sometimes the same character could be smart, and sometimes could be a little dumb. Sometimes could be rich, sometimes could be poor, sometimes could be naive, sometimes could be scheming. Even the same characters, but essentially there are several characters that are very popular, and the 4 characters that are in this play in Pagliacci are perhaps the most important in all the stories. The first one we're going to talk about is our Pagliaccio par excellence, our first clown, which is actually Pierrot. I'm going to hold on a second. Pierrot is actually in this case is called Pagliaccio, but let me show you a bit of what the Pagliaccio looks like. Here we go. So this is the typical Pagliaccio image. In fact, you can see other Commedia dell'arte characters here. This is a Watteau painting. Pagliaccio or Pierrot, it had other names also. It's one of the main characters, and especially it was a character that was much loved by the artists, is especially the romantic artists. It's a little sad, a little aloof, a little lonely. Often he had a white face, a painting white face, a bit because he was pale like death, but also just to show this element of depression and very poor colors. His outfit is totally white, sometimes with dark, big black buttons on in the front, but essentially this white character. Um, One of the things is he was always pining in love for this beloved. Usually, it's Colombina, the Columbine, that often breaks his heart, and he will never. He will never. She will never agree to his love. It's one of the characters that perform unmasked, which is unusual. It's something actually like Colombina. Usually, most of the characters will have very clear masks that define the personality of these stock characters. But again, because Pierrot is a closer to the normal people and is this sad, weak, humble character, he didn't have any distortion in the face. What else? So it's always naive, a little fool. He's often the butt of pranks, but he was always trusting. And some example of typical, because in this case we see these characters in this opera, but many operas are based on these commedia dell'arte types, and certainly if you think about Don Pasquale, which have almost the same characters as this our play within the play, Ernesto the tenor is the perfect Pierrot element, right? He's always idealistic. In fact, there was always a relationship with the moon, because he fall in love with the moon, and as a symbol of falling in love with something that is impossible to attain. It was always sympathetic, and actually, this idea of this that it was so common in early 20th century of the sad clown comes from this element of commedia dell'arte. And again, the artists, most of the artists, the poets and the playwrights identify with clown because he is the artistic soul, he is the beaten soul, he is the deceived soul, and often this suffering character was much liking of all the poets, and became a symbol of many plays, especially in the early 20th century. If you think of Hoffman, and in Tales of Hoffman, this idea of a poet that is deceived constantly but always trusting, it counts exactly for this play. Also, the fact that he was quiet, it actually relates to the style of mimes, and in a way we think that the mimes have this white face because of the same idea, this idea of aloof and quietness and separation, and to show his innocence but also his depression. He's always frustrated in pursuit of Colombina, but he's always trusting, and he's always with hope. It's interesting that in our play, and I will not tell a lot about the actual play, Pagliacci, because I believe very firmly that if you've never seen the opera, you should never read the synopsis before going to see the opera. I always said that you only have one chance to see an opera for the first time without knowing what's happening, and after that, then yes, read the synopsis and watch it as many times as you watch. But in what I can tell you is that the author, the composer, which is also a librettist in this opera, the composer wrote the libretto also. Ruggero Leoncavallo wrote both the music and the libretto. identifies with this character, and in a way hope that the audience somehow will identify with the character. Although his behavior is not a good one, but this idea of frustration, I think is a mirror from the artist's point of view. One thing that what I want to say is that this play, allegedly the story of the opera was based in a real life story. Rogero Roncavallo's father was a judge, and there was a case in his hometown in which something had happened, that a traveling troupe had some problems with the locals, and he based his story in this real life, and certainly he was very eager, Roncavallo, to make sure to say that the story is based on a real life story, yet again to create a stronger sense of reality, right? Again, in this constant pursuit of verismo. The other character is our Colombina, the Columbine, which is this little girl. She is a bit of what's called the soubrette in the play, not so much in the opera, but in the play. And she is this smart, working woman. In the original character used to be a dancer, because females were not allowed on stage. So let me show you a bit of a yes. Let me show you a typical outfit of Colombina. This is a typical outfit of Colombina. It's a short dress, white, very simple. This is a dance, of course. And by the way, this is Harlequin, I'm going to talk about later. And the Harlequin is probably the most famous and more recognizable of all the characters because of the very typical outfit. But the outfit of Colombina is this working girl, usually a maid, that is very witty, very smart, and there's the examples of the soubrette character. It's all over opera, and the most famous, of course, is Susanna in The Marriage of Figaro, but also Despina and Zarlina and Tarvinetta. Those are all the same characters, come from the Commedia dell'arte. These very smart girls that always have something to say. They are a bit gossipy. They're very down to earth. They are not dreamy. They're not these romantic, dreamy little girls. There's another character in Commedia dell'arte which is called the lovers that are that. But Colombina is this very witty, smart, a little bossy. One example of an opera. Another example of opera character that is based on the Colombina is La Serva Padrone by Paisiello, Pergolesi, a very typical Commedia dell'arte play in which we have Colombina, we have Pantalone, the old geezer, old guy that wants to fall in love with a young servant that is always outsmarting him. So she's always dressed in this short dress, a little worn, to show that she's not a rich person. She's simple, but well, very straightforward and very, very smart. And often Colombina is chased by Arlecchino, and sometimes it depends on the play, but sometimes Arlecchino and Colombina will match, and sometimes Colombina will also not talk to Arlecchino. By the way, how this Commedia dell'arte worked is that we have these characters, but the plays itself, it was a bit improvisatory and a bit scripted. There are certain jokes that were already set, and there were lines that were supposed to happen, and essentially the characters know where the story was going to be. There's always a very simple, straightforward thing that, you know, for example, the old rich guy wanted to marry the young servant, but the young servant was in love with the young prankster. So between the servant and the prankster, deceived the old guy so they get the money, for example, something like that. So that is a typical story. Don Pasquale is very much like that. The Barber of Seville is exactly like that, right? So essentially, these are the same operas, right? It's they are all commedia dell'arte in which Cenerentola, the version of Rossini, also plays with the same characters of commedia dell'arte because it was so strong in the mind of the Italian culture in all to the centuries. Now we're going to talk really with our Colombina, which is called Nedda in the play, in the opera, and Colombina in the play, which is Catalina Cuervo, soprano Catalina. Hi, Catalina, how are you doing?
Hello, Maestro, and
Nice
hello everybody that is with us today.
And are you in Chicago?
I'm in Chicago right now.
And you're about to fly to New York because we start tomorrow. So hopefully you'll make it, right?
I have my bag here.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. When one foot on the play. Well, thank you very much for making time. I'm glad that you had time to and that it worked out that you're here with us. Tell me about Nedda. Not so much Colombina, but Nedda, because Nedda is supposed to be the real person one. So
Nedda, at first glance, seemed like this,
remember, we don't want to tell much about the story, right?
Okay, I cannot say the end.
No, that's definitely not the end.
No spoilers.
But not even closer. Not even get closer to the end.
Okay, so just in a general sense, exactly. Nedda, it's a young woman that it's married to Canio, who is Pagliaccio, and she feels that she's trapped in this very abusive marriage.
Right.
And when we meet Nedda, she's going to sing, or I'm going to sing, an aria that basically says it's talking about the birds and how very free they are, and she desires that. So right. That's Nedda in a nutshell.
In fact, you are singing a song, and by the way, the way that the composer justified a person singing on stage, because that's not what you do. You don't sing, right? You talk, right? So it is. But again, we suspend that they believe, and everyone is singing, by the way. But she sings a song that your mother taught you.
Yes.
And you're very sensuous. You're enjoying the weather. You're enjoying the sun on your skin, but you wish you were free as the birds, right? Now,
yes. So.
This play, the play and the opera and the play is very machista. It's very chauvinistic, right? So it is written with a very, very male perspective. Yet the female character is actually very strong, and in a way, she is, and that's well presented. She is. Aching for freedom in the relationship, freedom as a woman, freedom in her choices. How is it? How do you feel about Nedda in that perspective, in a very modern perspective, which is not? I mean, of course, the play is not modern, but it is quite realistic. So, how does it feel from a female point of view? This opera.
So. When with the whole movement of women getting liberated and not accepting sexual abuse and anymore, and harassment, we started to think about should we continue to put these operas and this plays on stage and continue showing what used to happen. And I certainly don't agree with that. I feel that it didn't used to happen. It's still happening. So it's very much what is happening to many women and men nowadays, all over the world. And in the case of Nedda, you have to understand a little bit of the backstory, which Canio, her husband, says a little bit by the end of the opera, which is that Nedda used to be in the streets, and she was homeless, and very young age, probably. In my backstory, I'm thinking he grabbed her from the streets when she was like 14 years old, and he was older than her, and this was a way for her to escape being homeless and being hungry. And he basically took her by his side because he fell in love with her. She's probably very beautiful and young woman, and it continued to be this abusive relationship in which she had no escape. She didn't have family, and going forward, he is not the only one that is abusing and harassing her. It's also other characters in our opera. The character of Canio, it's the other Pagliaccio, the other Pagliasso, and he also harasses her all the time, and it's always on top of her, like trying to kiss her and trying to grab her and all of that, just treating Nedda like she is not a person, like she is something to abuse and something to use just because she's beautiful. It's like this beautiful cup that you can just grab and drink from. And so we see a little bit of this. And then even another character, Silvio, who is the one she's in love with, even he cannot understand how in danger she is with this abusive relationship. And he just wants her to go away with him and just go like, you know, that easy, and is really not understanding the pain and the anger and the, I'm sorry, not the pain, the pain and the, and how scared she is of this relationship and what can happen to her. So I love that we are still putting these stories on stage, because there's women and men, again, all over the world who will identify with this sort of abuse, and people thinking that just because they helped you, they owe you, own you. I'm sorry. And this is not the reality. The reality is love should be love. And if her husband ever helped her to come out of the streets, he should not think that he owns her and he can abuse her and treat her that way. Is that, so this is kind of what Nedda is going through in this opera.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, fascinating. Thank you for bringing your perspective. And it's certainly it's a wonderful psychological and social play. In every character has its very valuable piece of life.
Yeah.
One interesting thing that they are very stocky characters, but in the opera they are not. They're very flawed. Everyone is flawed, and everyone has rights, and everyone is suffering, and everyone is wanting something and is frustrated and excited. So it's quite a roller coaster of emotion, which is very typical of the play. But one of the most successful things in this is that the emotions are so wonderful. I mean, so wonderfully created, and the story, being difficult as it is very important for us to present, right?
Yeah, Maestro, it's very, that's why, again, I'm giving the explanation from my side,
Yeah.
but I really don't want to put myself in Kanye's shoes. I really don't want to put myself in his shoes, because like you said, the beauty of Berismo and the real life situation that is happening to these characters is that he will have his own explanation,
right?
Which he explains a little bit by the end, but I don't like to read it because right. I really want to put myself in her shoes.
Yes.
But as you say, all of them are going through this journey, and all of them are suffering because of it.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you again for being here. But I can't wait for tomorrow.
Me too.
We are so excited to be in a rehearsal room, making live music together again. So we're very
yay!
That's what we live for. Thank you, Catalina.
Thank you, Maestro.
I'm going to move into the next two characters of Commedia dell'arte. The next one is this the old guy. a bit of a comic element to it, not in this show, but which is the Pantalone, which is this the rich old guy, right? So is he a person that has a higher status, that is maybe a little impoverished now, but that he was essentially rich, but a merchant, certainly a bourgeois, not a noble, that spent all his life making money, and now that was a little bored or just trying to keep the money. And this is typical, and often that is very interested in marrying. He's usually a widow or a bachelor, and he's always interested in marrying the younger, very young girl, often Colombina. And again, this is the same characters that are in the Barber of Seville, and in Don Pasquale, right? So we have this typical stocky character that you may have seen in most of the operas. He was always dressed a bit devilish like this, with very tight red outfit. And by the way, he always had a very strong codpiece, or that's the name, codpiece, in which for just to show a bit, for him to show off that he was always he wanted to show off his attributes, but certainly to show that he was always horny. All right, and all these elements are very pointed. So in our play, Taddeo is going to play the older guy. In our case, Taddeo is not sorry, Tonio, which plays Taddeo. Taddeo instead of Pantalone. In our play, he's the form, and in a way that relates also for other deformed characters, the older characters that are that try to get something from younger people, and you can think of Rigoletto or that, but I'm going to mention that Rigoletto is also related to the next character, and I will say why. So in our plays, Tonio is in the opera is that Pantalone, this older guy that wants the younger girl, and in the play is Taddeo, and that he tried to seduce Catalina. Sorry, not Catalina. I'm in the Verismo. I don't know which name is which. Trying to seduce Colombina, but she throws him away, and both in the opera and in the real play, because she is in love with our last character, which is Harlequino. And Harlequino, let me show Harlequino. And again, as I mentioned before, Harlequino is one of the most famous characters in Commedia dell'arte for many reasons. But one of the elements is his outfit was such a recognizable character. This is very typical of the Harlequin character, with the wooden sword and the dark mask. By the way, the name Harlequin is same related, and the singers will enjoy this, is related to Erlkönig. It's the same, is the king of hell, actually, or the earl of hell. And so, and the mask comes still from that element, that and his devilish pranks remain. So Arlecchino is this witty, fast acrobat, very smart, always playing pranks, and it's a softening version of this devil playing pranks on everyone. In general, the Harlequin became a positive character, and it was often in love with Colombina, and he was always a nimble and an astute servant, and always helping Colombina to thwart, to upset the plans of his old masters, sometimes Pantalone. For example, in Pasquale, which is another, we were mentioning all the characters, he is a Malatesta, which is this smart doctor that tries, will outwit the older guy. Harlequin still has the younger lover element, and there are two versions of Harlequin. Sometimes he's this younger, smart guy, but also the prankster, like Buffon, motley fool kind of thing. And in that case, Rigoletto is this kind of Harlequin. In fact, Rigoletto is often dressed as Harlequin. He has the deformed element, but he also very witty and playing pranks, is a buffoon of the court. And he always plays the smart part, and he's always the one that is, although not changing the story too much, but helping make a mess of the story so the story can evolve. And in that case, it was always a very useful character in Commedia dell'arte. And we have our Harlequin, which is Pasha, or Beppe, or Pepe. Hi, Pasha. How you doing?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm so excited about tomorrow.
Yes, we're very happy to have you back, and you are a veteran of opera in Williamsburg. We love you, and the audience love you with a reason.
And I love them.
We're so happy to have you back. And tell us about Harlequin. It's Beppe. It's a short little guy.
Yeah, it's a guy who is an artist like me, right? He's playing an Harlequin. It's gonna be easy role for me. I'm an artist, so I'm gonna be playing an artist.
And you're playing a nice guy in the show, and
yes, I am.
That is always helping, right? So
yes, I am a nice guy.
So that's
in life and in the opera too.
Exactly. And so we're going to Harlequin has a little song. In fact, he's playing himself a serenade to Colombina. In when you hear the orchestra, you will hear the strings playing the guitar. Tuning, they're actually tuning. So we're going to Pasha sent us a video of him rehearsing this piece for us. So we're going to play. It's a bit, so you guys are going to have a bit of a play within a play now. The audience is going to see a rehearsal before we go into the opera to play the play. I don't understand anymore. Right.
Don't judge me. It's just what the rehearsal.
Too many layers over here. No, it's great. Here we have Pasha rehearsing the aria. Let me find it first. Excellent. Here we go. I'm going to enjoy. This is Harlequin aria or serenade, right? In which she's you will hear. We don't have the subtitles, but you will hear that she is talking to Colombina, and so he's talking to Colombina. What do you tell Colombina? What are you asking her?
Sorry?
What are you asking Colombina? What are you singing in?
So what do I sing? I just sing that here I am, the poor Harlequin in front of you.
In front of the window, right? Open the window and
right.
Let's get together. It's a night, right? And you're
yes, a serenade, exactly. Yes,
exactly. Typical serenade. Here we go.
Yes, love song. Yeah.
There we go.
Oh.
Oh no. Let me see if I can review it again. There we go. I'm glad. Can you hear it?
Colombina il tenero fido Harlequin, e a te dici
poi sospirando aspetta il poverino. La tua faccetta mostrami che io vo baciar senza tardar. La tua boccuccia amor mi cruccia, mi sta tormentar, e mi sta tormentar. Oh, Colombina, schiudimi il finestrin, che a te vicin, di te chiamando e sospirando, e il povero Harlequin a te vicin.
Bravo! Wonderful, beautiful.
Bravo!
Thank you, guys.
What are you doing with the arms? I mean, I know, but tell the people.
I'm just managing the technique while I'm practicing. I'm
All
just
right.
making sure that I'm gonna use it when I'm singing, because I cannot do this movement on stage. So
Right.
I'm trying to get used to this new piece. I've never performed this role, so I'm trying to get into my voice, into my body. So that's why I'm trying to.
All right. So these things are technique and the same with the arm, right? In your rib cage and things like that.
Yeah, the rib cage, the breath, the lines, and everything. Yeah,
Hey,
trying.
fascinating. Well, it's working beautifully.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Well, with that note, we're going to finish our hour long. If you have any questions, just let us know. But otherwise, I will see you all in 2 weeks right across the street, and the community building for our Pagliacci outdoors with orchestra and wonderful costumes, and we're going to figure out a way to do the super titles. Some high-tech way of so you can check it out. So Naama, I don't know if you can talk, and if you want to say something, I know you are there, but if not, we are going to wrap it up. Naama, you're muted.
Yeah, when can I hear you?
Right, I don't know if you're talking, but oh yeah, could you unmute yourself? There we go.
Right. Okay. By the way, I'm sorry I got off. I was on my ride from the airport to Kinneret's Place in New York, and I had to stop and pay the driver. So anyway, so here we are. For us, it's late at night. I'm very glad that we got here to New York, because
Right on time.
we had fairly interesting time in Israel lately, and the flight was delayed twice. Anyway, we are here. Rehearsal starts tomorrow in New York. We are coming next week to Williamsburg. We have absolutely terrific people and absolutely terrific opera. Really, the interaction between the play within the play and the play that you see is really fascinating in this opera. And I'm not going to give away the plot. Please, if you have tickets, we are looking forward to seeing you there. If you don't have tickets, the very last tickets are still available. Get your tickets. operainwilliamsburg.org. See you there. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you very much, Naama, and thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Catalina and Pavel, for being with us.
Thank you, Mike.
And I will see you all tomorrow, and I will see everyone soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Good seeing you. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.
Bye.